Hello there! This is the Entertainment News, and today we're reviewing The Lunch Club.
No, today we're gonna actually be reviewing The Breakfast Club.
That should be a spin-off then.
Also, I forgot to mention, this review is also sponsored by the School of Rock, the musical group. Check out the show. It was actually very good. Enjoyed this show at this cup.
Now let's get on with this. So, IMDb gives us a 7.9 out of 10, and that's yes, not high enough because this movie is amazing.
And Rotten Tomatoes gives us a 9%.
That's a more appropriate score, if you ask
This
me.
video is sponsored by Expedia.com. Yes, enjoy the show and the mouse pad.
And basically the movie starts off at Shermer High School in Chicago, Illinois.
Which I feel like I've been at before, because that school looks very familiar, if you ask me.
And basically we got a small montage of the interior of the school.
Why? Seriously, why? I don't get it.
So we get introduced to the main character of the movie, which is Claire,
AKA?
I guess Tori from Victorious. And yes, we'll talk more about that because this movie is very related to the show.
And this is where we get introduced to Emilio Estevez, aka our Andre in the movie, Andrew.
And we can already see that Bender's acting, bad.
Yeah, and yeah, this is where Futurama got their Bender from.
No. Unfortunately, Bender keeps back sassing the principal, and he warns him that he's going to spend another day on a Saturday detention. And we can already start to see that none of these people have anything in common whatsoever.
Well, what do you expect, really? 5 teenagers with attitudes.
And then that moment when he gives him that stare.
Of course!
And this is where Bender starts acting like a prick.
Apparently, he's bugging Andrew and Claire, and apparently he's complaining that, well, what are they supposed to do if they're supposed to take a pee? So he attempts to try to piss on the floor, which gets Andrew even more mad and starts to threaten him, which now gets Bender to, act up right there.
Also, the other characters are Allison and Brian.
Because Andrew's pissed now, he starts scolding Bender, which now makes him tease him and Claire about being in a relationship.
Wow.
Just wow.
Hey, Sporto, what did you get in here for? Afraid to wash your jock?
And basically he keeps on making fun of him more and more, which is just, yeah. So then this all results to them all talking about clubs, which Brian on the background keeps mentioning all the clubs that he's in, which is kind of making Bender a little pissed.
Meanwhile, Bender has different ideas.
Basically, Bender steals a screw from the door to keep it permanently locked.
Yeah, that's odd.
And apparently the others tell him to, put the screw back in because they will get in trouble if the principal finds out. And he's just trying to cover it up as they are yelling at him to put it back in. And Principal Vernon hears it from the other side, and now he starts getting pissed.
I'm telling you, sir, I don't have it.
Yeah, basically he says he doesn't have the screw, and then Claire gets involved, trying to say it just fell out, and he tells her to shut the fuck up. Anyway, he keeps telling her that he does not have it, even though he really does. So what does he do? He calls Andrew Clark to help him move this thing into the front door so that the front door can just stay open. Very clever idea.
Yeah.
Basically, now we get to the part where Bender starts backsassing Principal Vernon, which is now making him give him more detentions than ever.
Yeah.
Apparently, Bender's not listening because he really does not care what happens to him about this because he's been there so many times, I guess.
Well, go figure. Well, what do you expect, really? I mean, Principal Douchebag over here decided that instead of going to prison, you're gonna stay in here. And so he ends up being in detention for apparently 2 months. Yeah. And what are your thoughts to that, Meg? Ugh.
It's basically a get-out-jail-free card.
And what the hell is that?
He doesn't have to go to prison.
Basically, Bender does not care once again and starts making it worse for himself. As a result, he has him for 2 months, like Mike said, and leaves the library and
Fuck yeah!
And so for the rest of this movie, we get treated to a small montage of them just chilling around the library.
They're chilling, 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 chilling. They are chilling out in the library. Da, 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 da.
Basically, this ends up for all of them to fall asleep until the principal ends up telling them to wake up, and they are not. And basically, the next scene cuts to them chilling again as Bender's actually ripping some more pages out of books.
So much for school literature.
So Andrew is fed up with some of Bender's annoyances, so basically he pushes him a little bit. And as
basically, he gives him the middle finger. Wow, this is great. But unfortunately, when Brian tries to start the fight, Bender starts making fun of Brian and his clothes. And then we get into the part where Bender and Claire actually know each other's names, where Bender actually starts making fun of her name.
Okay, that's just really dumb.
Yeah, apparently. Basically, he keeps making fun of her name even more as if she's going to squeeze out a few puppies of some sort, which gets her mad and flip the finger.
And this is where we get into the worst part of the movie, wherein Bender is asking Claire,
"Are you a virgin?"
And does it really matter?
No, it does not. What's the big deal?
Yeah, and unfortunately, she's being pressured to do it. Andrew, deciding that he does not like any of this, decides to tell him to leave her alone because she is being bothered by him.
Well, what do you expect, really? Andy here is one of the best characters in the movie.
Tell me about it.
And Claire is basically being, well, you know, trying to be the logical one.
So she won't get into trouble.
Into trouble.
Well, this is where Bender is getting himself into a bit of trouble because they are starting to get pissed off at each other and ends up with them going into a little fight where...
Well, what do you expect? He warned him he was going to end up on the ground.
Yeah, he put him down on the ground real hard. So Andrew gets pissed and tells him to leave her alone by saying that he doesn't talk to her, look at her, or think about her, and just says just to back... Basically, he's just telling him to back the fuck off.
I'm the janitor.
Who is apparently Brian's father, yeah. Who doesn't seem to be much of a nice guy, as he tells them the secrets about what he does around the school.
Yeah, but ultimately, he isn't really the best.
Because he sneaks through their lockers, you know, he listens to their conversations. He's just a weird, messed up dude.
He has layers.
And so Andrew and Allison start going down to the teacher's lounge so they can get some soft drinks and some milk so they have something to drink. So basically now we got Bender asking Claire some more weird questions, as he also asks Brian if he's ever done it with somebody. And that's where he says he did, until he asked if he ever done it with anybody here in America. Unfortunately, Claire thinks that he's being a very dirty pig, as Bender also thought that he did it with Claire, and he's trying to explain to her that he wasn't doing anything wrong like that, and says he's a virgin. She's okay with guys being a virgin, which makes Brian a little less sad. And now it's lunchtime. So Bender obviously has no lunch, as Claire asks him, and then he starts saying some nauseating stuff. Apparently, obviously, Bender is going to make fun of her food, which is basically sushi, and asks why she'd rather eat that than put a guy's tongue in her mouth.
And this is where Andy seems to have these interesting lunch. I mean, seriously, look how big it is. I mean,
He turns out to have a lot of...
yeah, a lot.
Okay, we need to call this guy the lunch bully.
Yeah, because he is making fun of Brian's lunch.
And he did make a weird look at, you know, Andy's lunch. He's weird.
I have no idea why he's acting like a bully.
After this, he starts making fun of Brian by pretending to be his mother and bothered by having this weird conversation. You know.
Making fun of his family.
Then Andrew asks him to tell him about his life, and so basically he's like, "Stupid." Basically is his father the entire time. Go figure.
Yeah, he's basically reenacting of how his life is at home, which may give you a clue of why he's acting like a jerk all the time. Apparently, Andrew does not believe this, so with a bad expression on his face, he walks over to him. As a result, he goes up to him, shows his arm, and then we can see that he has a cigar burn, in which he states that that's what he gets in his house if he spills paint in the garage.
That's what he gets when he spills paint in the garage? A cigar burn? That's nuts! I don't believe that.
And showing that to him made him feel more angry and a little depressed as he climbs up a railing.
Which is very awesome.
Which he, after, you know, putting some books on the floor. After the whole incident, they all decide to sneak out of the library in an attempt to go to Bender's locker.
Well, we'll get to that.
Anyway, Brian keeps asking questions of why he's doing this, and they just don't want to answer. It turns out they went to Bender's locker, well, because he wanted to get drugs.
Okay. Anyway, douchey McPrincipal over here, basically, is just walking down the hall.
Until these guys get stopped by a cage, and now they're basically trapped. Unfortunately, he hears his voice, Bender, and apparently Bender is in the gym playing a basketball and screaming out loud, which gets him really, really pissed.
I'm going for a scholarship here, douchey.
And he basically tells them to get the fuck out, and he tells them that he's not going to be with him anymore because he's going to be sent somewhere else. Tell me about it. Andrew, finding this funny for some reason, gets scolded by the principal as he tells him that he's going to end up in a really bad position in his later life and that he should look at him 5 years later. Unfortunately, Bender is taking it too far with the principal as he's cursing and shoving him, and he's just making things worse just for himself, which gets him out of the library. Anyway, Dr. Douche Doom over here decides to pull him into the janitor's closet, I don't know why, and starts scolding him, telling him how he hates him, and he's just gonna be like, this is the last time you've ever done this in front of me.
And then he threatens to beat him up. Assault much?
And just to see how tough Bender is, Dr. Dipshit over here decides to let him take the first punch into his face.
Ugh.
Hey, I would have done it.
Yeah, I would have punched him too, to be honest. I mean, he makes me so angry. Ugh. You wanna know something, man? It makes us so mad. I mean, let's pretend this thing right here is Dr. Douche-Boom over here. And yeah, I don't care, it's a Fantastic Four reference like we did in the earlier reviews. Dr. Doom over here basically is douchey McDouchepants. So anyway, this is how I see it.
Anyway, Bender decides to sneak out of the closet as he leaves some of his clothes behind. Anyway, he ends up going through the air ducts in an attempt to get back to the library. While he's walking through the air ducts, or crawling in that matter, he's telling a dirty joke, and before you all know it, he stops and crashes through the ceiling and just gives the excuse that he was just getting his pencil. And while Principal Richard comes back and asks them what the hell is going on, they try to cover up for Bender as he's under the table making some noise, and then they're making some additional noises, which is just confusing the hell out of the principal.
And then this happens.
Anyway, he keeps on continuing to yell at them as they are just laughing a little bit, and he's just telling them to shut the fuck up while Bender is still under the table, and claims that he will not be made a fool of as he basically walks away with some toilet paper on his pants.
Then Bender finally gets out under the table and asks Ryan for the drugs.
And that's what he calls his doage. Basically, everyone, like Claire and Brian, decide to go where Bender is so they can have a little smoke break. And it turns out that they completely fogged up one of the classrooms, so jeez, it's a lot of smoke. That's where Andrew comes out, and now he's feeling so good from all this highness, he decides to take his clothes off and dance a bit around. And before you all know it, he's basically dancing around the entire library, flipping around, doing cartwheels and that.
Dancing with this Nike logo. Basically, douchey McPrincipal here has a real orgy
on the fire teachers as the janitor comes in and asks what the hell he's doing. Apparently, he's looking at this, and apparently, I guess they think it's illegal or something, so he has to keep it secret with the janitor. So basically, we got Bender and Claire who are looking through each other's, personal belongings as Bender's looking through her purse, and basically Claire's looking through his wallet.
Yeah, that happened.
And she notices how many girlfriends he has, and the fact that...
And she asked him where all of these hairs.
And Brian and Allison are talking, as Brian accuses her of being a thief, and thinks that she's gonna run away with all the stuff and shit in her bag. Anyway, the next scene results into them just sitting around the library as they're just chilling again, and talking about some fun stuff about, are you gonna drive to school naked? But it turns out all to be nasty, as they still keep asking, Claire about whether she's a virgin or not. And didn't they just cover this before?
And this is where we at last learned the real reason why Andrew got stuck in detention today.
For the record, guys, this is kind of a sad story. So here we go. Apparently, he kind of taped a guy's buttocks together and ended up humiliating him in such a bad way. And because of that, he felt really bad for what he did and couldn't imagine how he could say sorry to that.
Then we learn a little bit why Brian got into detention. Just a little. We'll get into that later.
And it's kind of a sad story. Spoiler alert!
Yeah.
And then that's where we see that Claire has a strange yet amazing talent.
Oh, heck yeah, it's amazing.
Which involves putting lipsticks in her boobs and trying to put the lipstick on her lips without actually touching it. Now everybody starts scolding Bender as they believe that he just made fun of her for doing that talent. And then Bender starts not really caring about what Andrew says, as he remembered, he doesn't really count in this world,
Yeah, it was very sad.
And of course, Bender keeps making fun of Claire for some reason because of this, and just keeps mocking her about it. He ends up keeps mocking her about it, like, oh, where'd you get those earrings and stuff? And it kind of starts to drive Claire very emotional as she's almost about to begin to cry.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude, you really should back off.
Yeah, you really should.
Anyway, he's mocking her about all this. Oh, I got some earrings for Christmas. Oh, I got smokes for Christmas. I don't know. That's when everybody just stares and becomes quiet for some reason. And she tries to scold him back as she tries to tell her about how his friends would try to do the same thing and whatnot. And he just gets pissed because, it's his friends.
So Alex over here.
What?
Dude,
what?
Man.
Dude!
Yeah.
Ay, caramba.
Where are you going? Whatever.
And apparently Brian feels upset because Claire, he thinks she's being conceited about this when she's really not. She begins to cry as she's trying to tell him that she's not conceited, and the truth is she does not like going along with what her friends say because, friends.
Yeah, friends can be like that, and this is part of the reason why she ended up here as well.
Yes. And
her friends, they screwed her over.
Didn't they?
There are actually some people that are like that. I mean, I knew a guy when I was a kid that did something very similar because he listened to his friend. And, he got suspended for that. It would have been longer had I not stepped up for him. It got me in trouble, but I admit that was wrong.
Alright, guys.
Okay. Now we learned the full reason why Brian is in detention. He brought a gun to school.
Unfortunately, it was a flare gun, but still.
He was going to kill himself.
If he wasn't going to get the perfect straight A's that he and his parents were expecting. Apparently, they start laughing at him, not because of what he was going to do, but because of his backfired project. And now we go into the most classic scene of the movie where we've got the whole dance montage.
A dance montage, a dance montage, a dance montage.
Speaking of classic, we got this classic shot right here.
Yep, yes we did. It's nice.
And this just follows up with more dancing. So basically it ends up with them talking, and Claire asks Brian whether he's going to write his essay or not. And he says, yeah, apparently she wants just him to write the essay for all of them, because he's a smart one. Obviously Brian agrees to do it, because now they're all friends here.
They admit it.
Yeah, because they tell them that they trust him, so he's going to write the essay, telling him who they think they are, in all of their perspectives, in one essay. And so Claire just starts giving Allison
a makeover. Sure, why not?
Just to change her, and she's very happy that she's being really nice to her for some reason. Well,
Then Bender's back in the closet, and then Claire follows him in.
Wow, she really does love him.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And this is where Andrew gets his big boner as they see the hot version of Allison.
Ooh. And also, Bender seems to have a real boner because he's about to kiss, Claire because she's really hot. And he realizes that he really likes her too.
Aww. Brian, the one who doesn't have a boner here, In the end, decides to finish the essay.
When he does, well, you got Andrew and Allison staring at each other again. And this is where we get our scene where they walk out of the school.
Saying goodbye to our good friend the janitor here.
And they tell him that they're going to see him next Saturday and whatnot. And this is where we just go to the cars and they're getting picked up and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, of course the janitor's okay with it because it's Brian's dad.
And so Andrew gets picked up by his father.
And Claire gets Bender
Her earring, which she keeps, obviously. And our last moment
is with Douchey McBrexit here, basically reading the letter.
The essay telling about who the heck they think they are, which they find pretty ridiculous.
But still good for them.
And here we go to the ending of the movie where Bender
is walking in the field.
And this is where we get our classic movie shot of the entire, movie. Anyway, thanks for watching our review, everybody. On to the brief overview.
So, a brief overview. I give this movie for stars an 8.5 out of 10. This was just an amazing movie all around. I mean, the cast is just excellent in their roles. They interact off each other incredibly well. And the douchey mixed principal here is one of the reasons why I don't give it a perfect score, and Brian's backstory. But ultimately, this is just a good movie. Emilio Estevez, in my opinion, he is really good in his role. And ultimately, Allison is probably my favorite character of the bunch. And if you're wondering why she did not get detention, yeah, she did not get detention. She just stayed there. Go figure. I mean, she's just a rebel in this movie. In fact, they all kind of were in a weird way. And it's just a very clever movie. Great cast, great interaction, perfect timing. So what do you get this thing since you were in that?
I just have to say, it deserved more than a 7.9.
Well, good night, everybody. See you in the next review.